DLC. Double feature. Octolings and rabbits are weird creatures.
Joke over! Hello my downloadable friends, Arlo here, and today we're doing a double review. Bam Bam! Octo Expansion and Donkey Kong Adventure. Both are sizable expansions for popular Switch games and they're released really close to each other, so let's review them both. Extra whoosh! Let's start with Splatoon 2's Octo Expansion. When this was announced earlier in the year, it filled my tummy with all sorts of happy heart feelings. I do enjoy playing Splatoon's multiplayer modes, Salmon Run especially, but as a gamer, my one true love will always be single-player experiences. Splatoon 1's Octo Valley was an absolute joy, though it was too short and was very much lacking in the story department. Splatoon 2's Octo Canyon was basically the same thing again. Still a blast, still loved it, maybe even a little better than Octo Valley, but we were left wanting more. It didn't feel like the big, upgraded single-player experience befitting a sequel. The world of Splatoon was just so cool on the surface that we were all eager to dig a little deeper. Enter Octo Expansion. From the start, it felt like this was the developers giving us what we had been asking for. They promised more story, more lore, and just more stuff for one person to do. Sign me up! And now, after playing through, I can definitely say that Octo Expansion is a fun and hefty experience, but it's also something of a mixed bag. In it, you're an Octoling, and you wake up in a weird subway with Captain Cuttlefish. You've been separated from your fellow Octolings and Octarians, and magically turned into a good guy by hearing a special Inkling song called the Calamari Incantation. I thought that was a little cheap, but hey, I don't know, that's a small nitpick. Anyway, some weird corporation or something tasks you with traveling around the subway network, proving your worth by completing challenges and collecting 4 things in order to escape to the surface. All the while, Pearl and Marina of Off the Hook fame communicate with you and help you out. The story's a little convoluted and doesn't make a ton of sense. What are these challenges accomplishing? Why are there other people in this subway? If I'm trapped down here, why can't I just go where they're going? Are they trapped and completing challenges too? Because they look like they're going to work. I don't know. Then the story stuff is nice, but it's still not quite where I wanted it to be. Between the beginning and the end, there are no real developments. Most of the new lore comes from a series of chat messages between Pearl, Marina, and Captain Cuttlefish, so it's sort of slowly and subtly fed to you, much like it is with the scrolls you collect in the main campaign. Not a lot of huge revelations, just sort of filling in some smaller details. It's still enjoyable though, and reading the logs is great fun. As usual, there's a lot of good humor, and even more than the lore, they help flesh out these characters. The most surprising thing though is how much the game fleshes out your character. You're always silent, as expected, but completing levels earns you these little things called mem cakes, and each one comes with a short poem written by the character. At first glance, they seem like a little throwaway thing that's just for fun, but they offer a weird amount of character depth, mostly by showing that the character has dreams and aspirations that reach beyond this subway. Speaking of the subway, it's another slight disappointment. After you leave the main platform, you're stuck in these 2 cars, and you pull up a menu to get around to the different challenges and read your logs and basically do everything. I do appreciate the flavor aspect of the subway, especially the different sea creatures you see coming and going. They make the world feel very alive, and of course it's just plain fun to see all the crazy designs and how they were made into creatures that look at least vaguely humanoid. But the fact that you're just running around this tiny little place and controlling everything with your menu makes me wonder what the point of running around even is. I guess it just would have made it a little more fun if you could do a little more in the subway cars themselves. The way it is definitely the most convenient, but you know me, I'm a weirdo. I'm all about flavor and feel. Anyway, on to the main attraction, the challenges. 2 interesting things about these challenges that set them apart from the main campaign. First, they're way more unique and creative and offer a huge amount of variety. Octo Canyon has you moving through stages, mainly just splatting Octarians and making your way to the goal. There's a good amount of variety, and there are a lot of different design mechanics, of course, but the core experience is mostly the same across the board. But Octo Expansion has you doing any number of interesting new things. Lots of stages have you escorting a ball to the goal, or getting to the goal using a limited amount of ink, or playing pool, or making shapes out of stacks of boxes. I mean, the list goes on and on. I do love me some variety, and Octo Expansion has variety coming out its ears. The second thing that sets these challenges apart is the difficulty. Casual splatters beware, this ain't no happy romp to the finish line. A great number of the challenges are extremely demanding, allowing little to no room for error. Sometimes you'll take a look at things and be like,
You want me to do what?
Unfortunately, this is where the mixed baggeriness comes back into play. It's not always easy to find the exact line between a rewarding challenge and frustratingly difficult, but it's there somewhere. Sometimes beating a level would make me feel awesome, like I really rose to the occasion. But too often I found myself yelling at my TV, my heart racing and cold sweat coming off of me by the bucket. Sometimes you just have to be so perfect that it's hard to have fun. And that level of difficulty is fine in moderation, but man, sometimes you'll hit a bunch of hard levels in a row and it starts to feel pretty oppressive. Multiple times I had to stop myself from just turning the game off because I knew that if I did that, I would never want to pick it up again. Even worse than just being frustratingly hard though, too many of the levels start to feel overly tedious. Since there's often zero room for error, that means that you'll find yourself creeping and crawling through levels, trying to make sure everything is just right, making sure that your ball doesn't fall off the side of the map and just tapping it, or making sure that you don't get hit or you don't break the wrong box. It's another element that starts to feel oppressive after long enough. After my first few hours with Octo Expansion, I realized that I was just not having a lot of fun. It felt more like a job than a video game. I appreciated the variety, but found myself missing Octo Canyon, where you just go. You just go, and there are just guys to fight, and it's consistently fun. It's like the difference between eating a variety of fancy nuts with your bare hands without the aid of a nutcracker, and just shoveling a bunch of pre-shelled peanuts into your mouth. The former is probably a richer experience, but you start to miss the simple, easy enjoyment of the latter. Fortunately, things did start to improve the more I played. For every overly frustrating or tedious challenge where one mistake means an instant fail, there's another that's really clever and interesting or challenging in a more fun way. There are a handful where you tilt the entire level around trying to collect 8 data nodes, and they're definitely a highlight. In fact, the longer levels that feel more like traditional levels are the most fun. This is where the unique design of Octo Expansion really starts to shine through, where you can see the developers playing around with fun concepts or putting fun spins on pre-existing challenges. It's disappointing that there are no new bosses until the end, but I really enjoyed fighting all the bosses from Octo Canyon under new conditions, such as being stuck in the baller the whole time. I don't want to spoil too many of the good ones, but just know that all in all, I did end up finding a lot to enjoy, and the idea of going back through and hitting some of these challenges again with different weapons is pretty appealing. One last thing I'll say about the challenges though is that it's pretty disappointing to go into a level with a thing in it and find that there's no challenge or boss or anything keeping you from it. You just walk in and grab the thing and, oh, you're done. So yeah, I've got a good amount to complain about, but you know what? Very little of it matters when you hold it up against the expansion's ending. Of course, I won't spoil anything, but at the end you do a series of stages that are really, really excellent. Fantastic design and a very healthy level of challenge. Then it all leads to a final boss and an ending that make you go, yes, that is how Octo Canyon should have ended. Everyone was hyping it up a lot, and it still managed to blow me away. I want to say more about it, but I can't. All I can say is that it's great. Everything about it is great. The whole ending sequence of the game is worth a large chunk of the expansion's price all by itself. If you're a fan of Splatoon, then there's no way you're not going to enjoy it. Finally, we come to presentation, and Octo Expansion looks and sounds a treat. The subway is an interesting location for sure. You have to wonder just how deep you are and what you're seeing when you look out the windows. Then inside the levels, you'll see all sorts of weird and interesting human junk just floating around, and it's always fun to find something particularly cool. The most notable thing about the whole aesthetic is the undeniable 80s vibe, the retro technology, the neon, and even a lot of the music. This is really interesting because the 80s style is really in right now, and off the top of my head, I can't think of another case of Nintendo using a popular style for one of its games. And hey, I'm not complaining. I love the whole 80s thing. It's cheesy and fun, and I love it. I listen to a lot of synthwave. It's just really interesting. It's not something I'm used to. So that's Octo Expansion. I'm not really into giving DLC a score, but I will say that I'm glad I bought it. I'm conflicted on certain elements, and it took a good while before I felt like I was really having fun with it, but when all is said and done, it offers a really unique and reasonably meaty experience for the price. It would have been nice if this was more of an expansion pass situation where it came with some other stuff as well, but content-wise, it's certainly not bad. I've put in a good number of hours and I've still got lots of stuff to do. If, like me, you're not so great at splatting other people and want more to do all by your lonesome, you'll be missing out if you don't give Octo Expansion a go. Next up, let's talk about Mario & Rabbids Donkey Kong Adventure. Rabid Kong, Rabid Peach, and Beepo have been sucked into the washing machine and sent to an alternate universe, I think, and that's where Donkey Kong is, even though I thought he was in Mario's universe, and Rabid Cranky is there too, and the Megabug is there for some reason, even though it's in the other universe, and it's made a bunch of bananas all weird and glitchy, and they've turned Rabid Kong all big big and strong and mean, and you gotta beat him. It's not much of a story, and I'm not 100% sure it makes sense. It's just kinda, you're in this new place now, so go beat Rabid Kong and his bad bananas. And that's fine. It probably makes about as much sense as the original story, if I'm honest. It's just fun to work through a new scenario, whatever it is, and of course it comes with a whole new set of fun cutscenes. The humor isn't quite on the same level this time around, but it's still very much appreciated. All the rabid shenanigans that play out on screen, it's all good fun. Donkey Kong Adventure is a whole new campaign, and in fact, apart from requiring that you beat World 1 in the main campaign, it's completely separate. You select it on the main menu, and all skills and weapons start at nothing. It's a little disappointing that the new characters and mechanics can't be carried over to the main game in order to freshen things up a bit, though I can see how that might have impacted the design balance, so I understand it. And this way does have its perks. It's really fun to work your way up from nothing again. That's so much of the draw of any game with a progression system. And since it doesn't have to worry about impacting the design balance of the previous experience, it means they were able to really go nuts with the new design, with the kind of stuff you can pull off now. This new wackiness is all thanks to DK, whose movement system is pretty broken. He can jump freely up onto ledges and even use these launch pads to cross huge distances. The levels were designed so that you can chain pipes and pads together to move DK all over the place. He can also pick up basically anything, bring it with him on all of his crazy cross-map adventures, then chuck it. He can launch allies to new places, throw enemies into other enemies for a lot of extra damage, and even throw cover blocks. Like he just picks him up and throws him. This extra level of freedom on top of what was already a very generous movement system for a tactics game makes for some fun and interesting scenarios. It's very empowering to be able to accomplish so much with one turn, and chucking stuff around, just plain fun. Unfortunately, this all comes with one big drawback. It can be a little too easy. First, such free movement means that your enemies are often able to move around a lot as well to balance things out, but that removes most of the strategy of carefully planning your moves and utilizing cover. Cover means very little in this campaign. Then, since you can't plan as well and enemies can come at you at any time, it means the developers had to make them less powerful so that the game wasn't, impossible. Which means that it's just easy. These baddies don't do a lot of damage, and you can just throw them around everywhere. The second thing making the game too easy is the strength of your abilities. DK's got a boomerang that can hit a bunch of enemies in a chain, and he can even attract them all to himself and give them a beatdown all at once with his ground pound. Then Rabid Cranky can blast a whole area of guys when team jumping, or when being thrown, meaning he can do it twice per turn. Then he can put everyone around him to sleep, which is a complete game changer. Rabid Peach is a powerhouse as usual with her extremely helpful healing ability, and her multi-dash, which combines stupidly well with her ability to travel further by being thrown by DK. They all work together really well, which is nice, and it's really good design, and it's really fun, but sometimes they just work too well. Don't get me wrong, there were certainly some levels I had to repeat a number of times, but overall, I could have done with a little more challenge, particularly with the boss battles. Each boss can go basically anywhere on the map in one move, so none of them do very much damage, because if they did, it would be impossible to beat them, so you just kinda wail on them until they're dead. Donkey Kong Adventure does introduce some fun new mechanics to keep things interesting, though. Just like the main campaign, it slowly introduces new ideas and new victory conditions, and combined with the new characters, you're looking at a decently unique experience. And let me tell you, if you're the type that likes to consider price per hour when it comes to DLC, you won't find many better deals than this one. Donkey Kong Adventure will easily last you 10 hours, and after it's done, there will most likely be a lot of collectibles you missed, and there's a great big heap of additional challenges waiting for you after the credits roll. Some of these will keep you real busy too. So far, each one I've tried has either been, that was a nice challenge, I really had to think on that one, or what on earth do they even expect me to do? This is impossible. Considering that technically you only have to pay $15 to get all this and can forego the $20 season pass if you wish, DK Adventure is a steal. And I do not say that very often when it comes to DLC. Pretty much across the board, DLC offers way less content per dollar or whatever than their base games, but not so with this one. It offers quite a bit more. It's like half the base game for a quarter the price. Anyway, presentation-wise, Donkey Kong Adventure delivers. The environments are beautiful and exquisitely detailed, just as they were in the main game, and in fact, some of these locations might be my favorites. Then, just as it was fun to see Rabbids mixed with Mario, here it's fun to see them mixed with Donkey Kong. There's a whole lot of DK love here in the presentation and the music and even the sound effects. The weapons in particular feature tons of references to Donkey Kong games both new and old. This is another big effort from people who are obviously big fans. The only thing I would change would be incorporating more DK related stuff into the actual gameplay mechanics. Like instead of just letting DK use these launch pads, maybe let everyone swing across designs, maybe allow the characters to get around the map using minecarts or barrels, maybe include animal friends for temporary boosts, banana peels that trip foes, just a few ideas off the top of my head. The love is definitely there, but a little more tangible, functional stuff would have gone a long way. All in all, if you enjoyed Mario & Rabbids as much as I did, Donkey Kong Adventure is a no-brainer. Yeah, it can be a little too easy at times, but it is loads of fun. It's just a bunch more Mario & Rabbids. If you want a bunch more Mario & Rabbids to play for a great price, here it is. Now, fingers crossed for a sequel. That's it for this DLC review double feature, but before we go, I've got another 2 games I'd like to mention. Inside and the Crash Bandicoot N. Sane Trilogy both are released on the Switch recently. And while I won't be giving them full Switch reviews, I did review both of them back when they launched on their original platforms. So if you click the cards that are popping up in the corner right now, you won't find out how they run on Switch, but you will see what I thought about them in the first place. Spoiler alert, they both received glowing reviews, and Inside is, in fact, one of my very favorite games of all time, probably on my top 10. Anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think about Octo Expansion and Donkey Kong Adventure down in the comments, and return of joke at end of video for maximum comedic impact! DLC double feature. I don't know beyond this point, cause I've only listened to this song like twice in my whole life. Not a big Rocky Horror Picture Show fan. Just, I don't know. I mean, I don't think I've seen it. It was alright, but, you know, it's just not my thing, I guess.